Hello, my name is Giorgio Trumpy, research scientist at the University of Zurich. In the framework of the ERC Advanced Grant Film Colors, we explore new approaches for transferring the aesthetics of analog color film processes into digital form. For this seminar, hosted by the Center for Fine Print Research, I decided to talk about cyber-digitizations. I find this term useful in the struggle that often arises in the conservation of film and cultural heritage in general. The struggle of finding a compromise between two opposed opinions. The opinion of those saying that we should not absolutely alter in any way the original message of the artwork, and the opinion of the others saying that digital technologies could be also used to enhance the message of the artwork, especially if the message becomes clearer and reaches a larger audience. During the live seminar, I presented 4 case studies and asked the participants to choose between 2 options. At the end, we had an overview of the composition of the web room, with strict conservators striving to protect the artwork integrity, and technology enthusiasts who appreciate the benefits of cyber-digitizations. A moderate in-between option was not available, even if this is often a reasonable choice in real life. Let me tell you that I sympathize with both these categories, as long as choices are driven by thoughtful argumentations. Cinema is a quite particular form of art. I would say mostly because of the important dichotomy between, on the one side, the left side, the material essence of a motion picture film, a sequence of small images impressed on a long photosensitive plastic strip, and on the other side, the right, its ethereal visualization, the big moving picture. In film digitization practices, we actually scan the film itself, the material essence. But we have to keep in mind that the main intention of the film digitization is to reproduce the cinema screen, the ethereal event. Ideally, the screening at the time in which the film was first released, the premiere. This means making a sort of mental time travel and use our knowledge to determine what were these people seeing. The time travel is based on the analysis of the surviving film material, the assessment of its possible decay, and the examination of the projection equipment that was supposedly used to display the film images. First example, tinting and toning. Film tinting is the immersion of a positive black and white print into a dye bath that uniformly colorizes the gelatin. The result is that the bright parts of the image are colored, while the darkest parts remain substantially achromatic. Toning, on the other hand, is the transformation of the silver particles into colored souls. The visual result is, on the contrary, that the dark parts of the image are colored, while the white stays basically white. In the late 19th and 20th century, tinting and toning were popular and were often combined to obtain composite effects. These are typical combinations. Now let's make a distinction between 2 types of illumination. On the left, you see a diffuse illumination, such when you are handling the film on a light box. On the right, you see a condensed illumination, which is how a film is illuminating in a film projector. The soft, diffuse illumination, which is, by the way, also used by all commercial film scanners today, is completely different than the highly directional illumination of projection. In some cases of film toning, we found an extreme color differences between the images created in diffuse and condensed illumination. Using an overhead projector, It's a simple way to experience this color discrepancy. You can observe the image in diffuse illumination by directly looking at the film strip, and the image in condensed illumination by looking at the projected image. These being simultaneous and with the same white dot. Now let's imagine being the filmmaker who was admiring in his hands a freshly colorized film with this vivid blue. Then she or he threads the film in the projector and the blue is gone. We can imagine or argue that the filmmaker was probably disappointed. Who wants to tone a film in blue to get brown? So, what is the right version for the digitization of this tinted and toned film? The left one, which was probably the image seen by the spectators in the cinema, or the right one, which was maybe the image that the filmmakers wanted to create. See the color bar on the top? If you tend to say that the left one is the right one, then say yellow, otherwise say blue. Second example, lenticular film, a very special color process. This is on the right you see how the film strip looks like. Apparently just like a normal black and white film. On the left, bottom left, is a representation of its cross-section with some metric details. This color filter in top center is fundamental element of the color process. The array of cylindrical lenses, the lenticules, that are embossed on the film base cooperate with the color filter that is in front of the camera lens during shooting, so the color information is specially encoded in this way that you see on the bottom. Red, green, blue, etc. Here is a front view of this spatial encoding, highlighted with these colored stripes that I drew on the film emulsion. The lenticular film had a short period of success in the first half of the 30s, when it was sold to amateur filmmakers. The most popular product was the American Kodacolor. In this time, big investments were made to improve this additive color process and make it available for professional film productions. Quite suddenly, the rise of the chromogenic monopath, the kind of color we all know, cut the ambitions of lenticular film, and in the late 30s, it was already disappearing, apart from some later attempts until the 50s. But how was the film projected? Basically in the same way it was shot, but reversed. In front of the projector lens, another red, green, blue filter made colors appear on the screen. I've seen once this projection, and I must say that it was small, fuzzy, and dim. I remember that we had to go very close to the screen to actually see that there was a color image. Despite this, in this advertisement from the time, on the left, we read that pictures in Kodacolor are amazingly brilliant and remarkably clear. Sometimes advertisements are a bit excessive. Today, with digital technologies, we can recreate the colors in a completely different way. We can scan the silver emulsion in high resolution, and then we can write some software that localizes the vertical pattern of lenticules and converts the silver densities in RGB values. The resulting image can have a vibrant colors, but has a lot lower resolution than the original scan. To overcome this, we can combine the luminance from the original high-resolution black and white scan with the chrominance of the low-resolution color image and create a digital cyber. Now, The historically correct version of the film is screened in this kind of setting that you see on the left. On the other hand, the digital color reconstruction allows creating a big, bright image that can be shown to a larger audience. In this regard, we must consider that providing expanded access to film is one of the missions of archives and preservation institutions. So, what is the right version of the digitization of this lenticular film? The left one, which better resembles the original projection, or the right one, with enhanced brightness and more image details. If you tend to say that the left one is the right one, then say yellow, otherwise say blue. Third example, second last, the Mroz system, marketed in Austria in the early 30s. The color here is created by temporal synthesis, exploiting the phenomenon called persistence of vision. So the red and green images presented in rapid sequence are perceived together. It's the same principle used by the British predecessors Kinemacolor and Biocolor. In this representation, time passes from left to right. The frame rate of the original analog projection is 20 frames per second. Each frame, red or green, stays still in the projector's gate for 1/20th of a second. In order to reach the flicker fusion and have a pleasant perception, the spinning shutter blades of the projector increase the flicker rate. So each frame is shown 3 times for 1/120th of a second each time, interrupted by dark phases. This means that to accurately reproduce the temporal evolution of the original analog projection, we would need special equipment for high frame rate display. In order to obtain an historically faithful video file that displays 20 frames every second, we created a 60 frames per second video file, which is a standard frame rate, and we tripled each film frame. We didn't introduce any dark phase, assuming that the analog projection reaches the flicker fusion. The question now is the temporal color synthesis really taking place at 20 frames per second? We'll see in a minute. Let me first describe how the cyborg was produced in this case. By merging the red and green frames digitally, these are displayed simultaneously, so the color synthesis is forced digitally. The red and green images were also registered and stabilized. The left version here reproduces the supposed original projection and is historically correct. You can see that the red and green succession is still visible, so the color synthesis didn't really succeed. The right version exhibits a color synthesis, which is good, with just some fringes for moving objects that are typical of any temporal process. These represent the purpose of the film technique, which couldn't be achieved at the time due to technical limitations. Again, if you tend to say that the left one is the right one, then say yellow, otherwise say blue. Last example, chromogenic negative-positive process. This film specifically is from 1963. We had the camera negative and the projection print in good condition. They were both not faded. The production of a movie on chromogenic film required several steps. From the camera negative to the projection print, a couple of copying processes were necessary. In this case, a first one to obtain the interpositive, another one to obtain the internegative, and a third one to obtain all the projection prints. These copying processes are not perfect, and each of them entail some image degradation with loss of sharpness and image information. So we have a camera negative that contains the image with complete original information of the captured scene, but it doesn't tell us much on how the movie should look like. The projection print, on the other hand, is the proper color reference to reproduce the movie in digital. But its image quality is affected by multiple photochemical copying processes and also the scratches due to many projections. So why don't we create a cyber that merges the advantages of both? We can scan the negative and then grade the digital file to match the colors of the print. This can be done in an automatic way using reference frames of the print and letting an algorithm finding the transformation that produces the optimal color match. Here you see the digitized projection print in comparison with the digitized camera negative graded to match the colors of the print. In the camera negative, there is more sharpness, and especially in the darks, the image details are better preserved. The print version is the image that was seen in cinema theaters in the 60s. The negative version reveals image details that are contained in the negative, so nothing is fake. So, last poll. What is the right version of the digitization of this chromogenic film? The accurate reproduction of the original 1960s projection on the left, or the image with better preserved details of the original scene on the right? Again, say yellow or blue accordingly. I want to highlight that all the cyber-digitizations I presented are based only on information contained in the film material, information that has been just extracted and not invented. This is not the case for the colorization of black and white films that lately became quite popular. In this scene from Peter Jackson's They Should Not Grow Old is surely based on a thorough research on the color of uniforms during World War I, and the result can be surely entertaining. But let's not forget that these colors are just assumed, and there is no evidence in the film that could corroborate. Somebody might want to know, how did the poll go? Here are the results. For tinting and toning, the majority of participants voted yellow, so they preferred the historically correct image. For all other cases, lenticular film, Roth's temporal synthesis, and chromogenic film, the majority of participants voted blue, so they appreciated the benefits of the cyber-digitizations. So at least in front of the specific cases that were presented, the wet bloom looked to be mostly composed by technology enthusiasts. Last, I'd like to thank my colleagues, Josephine Dicke, David Fluger, Martin Weiss. The concepts and videos I presented are the outcome of our reasoning and our discussions. And a special thank goes to Professor Barbara Flutiger, whose knowledge and experience has always been an essential reference for us. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.